Hey everyone, welcome to the Unknown Feeds YouTube channel, where I do my best to provide tips and advice for future changers. Today we are going to have a very special video. This is because I've invited one of my American teachers and who is definitely going to give us some more tips and tricks on how to learn a new language, especially English. What I want you guys to do is to just stay tuned and make sure to watch this video until the end. Unfortunately, because of some security reasons, she cannot really reveal herself, and we are going to have a one-side-face conversation. Without any further ado, let's just jump right into our today's conversation.
Well, I think its first importance is to learn what your level of English proficiency is. If you are a basic learner, you need to understand the alphabet. The English alphabet has the letters, and you have to know the sounds of these letters, what they're called, but also what sounds are related to those letters. The fact that we have vowels and consonants, things like that. Then if you're more intermediate, you can begin to build your vocabulary with simple words as well as simple sentences. And then you begin to learn how the word fits in with the language usage. As an advanced learner, of course, you'd still be building your vocabulary, but you might also want to look back and see if you are mispronouncing words or if you are using words inappropriately.
Correct. Yeah. So I've seen a lot of my students. So when they try to learn new language, so they are just eager and pretty enthusiastic to develop their vocabulary. So do you think if when you start, so from for a beginner, is that necessary to build vocabulary?
Oh, yes, you need to be able to identify places, things, objects, all the nouns, whether it's a tree or a house or a door or a window or a chair or a table. It's very good to know these words, and it's very important to know how do you say the plurals, the multiples. So for tree, it would be trees. When do you add an S, and when do you add an ES, and when do you add, a VES like loaf and loaves, or there are all kinds of oddities, odd things that happen in English that are from the plural forms and what's appropriate. So that's something that you have to build and build and build every day with that. I think that it's essential to have that basic understanding of what the names of things are so that we're naming things correctly and also using the right article like the tree, the door, the window, or like for fruits and things like that, like an apple and a pear, a banana. Why do we use or why do we use the? And it's kind of a memorization. You have to just memorize and know what to do with that article, which is this word that comes before a noun.
There are a lot of students out there. So when they try to learn a new language, in the beginning, they really do not care about their pronunciation, which at the end, it just causes them a lot of problems. So what do you suggest them to do?
Well, they must get the pronunciation correct or they get into bad habits. And those bad habits then carry on into their future, and they might even come into a university or professional setting unable to pronounce a word properly. And that could be a real mark against them, and they wouldn't be able to advance in their chosen career or in their college courses.
Yeah, that's great. I have got a set of questions from my students, and I would love to ask you if you don't mind.
Great.
So the first question is how to make a good schedule to learn a new language, especially English.
I think it's good to begin the day by reading what you wrote down the night before. If you have a journal and you're writing down words or sentences or some aspect of English that you're just beginning to understand, be sure it's in written form in a journal or a notebook, and then you can read it first thing in the morning, and that will help it stick in your mind.
Yes. So what types of words do you think could be right for advanced learners?
Well, advanced learners can look in some literature. Maybe it's a subject, or maybe it's a novel by a good English writer like Charles Dickens or C.S. Lewis, or some of these very good writers, Eric Metaxas, who use a lot of good vocabulary. And they're very good in their writing. Some of them are fiction, some are biographies, even some science books, where you learn the vocabulary that is a little bit challenging. And then you can write those down in your journal, in your notebook with the definition. And of course, you can always Google the definitions, and so you know exactly how the word is used. And they often give you some example sentences. So
Correct.
it's takes some work.
Correct. What a beginner should do in order to be able to practice the words they learned.
Oftentimes it's the same as for every level, where you have your journal, you have it written down. So you have a word that you've learned. Oh, now I know that that is a window. So then I'm going to build
Correct.
some sentences about that window. Open the
Correct.
window, close the window,
Correct.
clean the window,
Yes.
things like that. And that's kind of sentences that you can work on, you could practice. And then also you will notice that you maybe have trouble with that W sound. So you've said window, but it's come out window. And so you know you have to practice your W. Then you have to say, well, how do I make the W sound? And you look at your
Yeah.
mouth and you say, oh, I have to make it look like a kiss. So I go woo, woo, woo for my
Yes.
window, that kind of thing. Kind of fun.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, it's really great. Here is another question, which goes like, where to find a good source to practice the methods you said.
I think that it is good to look online for pronunciation help. And sometimes you can even just put down how to say the TH sound. And then different videos will pop up for people who are with people who are saying just that sound and helping you make just
Right.
that sound. And that's sometimes helpful. I think it's also good if you
Yes.
have a workbook that has some uh, ways of putting a word in a sentence, and then it gives you the answer right away. You don't want to wait until, someone helps you correct your workbook, but you do want to know what the answer is quickly. But it's kind of
Definitely.
fun to test yourself. Have I used that word correctly? Have I used the plural form of that word correctly?
Correct. So I've seen a lot of YouTube videos, yeah, out there, but most of those videos are gonna be made by non-native people. And do you think learning pronunciation from these people could be effective?
I think it can be, though you don't get the clear pronunciation that a native speaker would give you. I've
Yeah.
also noticed that some of the videos are for people living in England or Australia or New Zealand or Canada. and their pronunciation is a little bit different from American English. So you kind of
Yes.
have to make a choice. Which one do I want to focus on? Because otherwise you might get confused going from one to the other.
Correct. That's really helpful. So here is another question, and I got this so repetitiously, which goes like, what books should I study to improve my English? It's the question which I am receiving it a lot. So what do you
What
recommend for
books?
this?
What books? That's very good.
Yeah,
Well, I think that there are many good books out there, but it depends on your level. I think that it's very good to go to some of the children's books because
yeah,
they have very good English structure. Some of the old books that are for kids that require kind of a challenge to see the setting, it gives a little cultural input as well as understanding the wording. There,
correct,
there is a great author called Rudyard Kipling, and he wrote books that are like The Jungle Book or Rikki Tikki Tavi, and a lot of them are based in India, but also have very good stories, very good vocabulary, and they're interesting enough. They're not just kids' baby stories, but they're actually good stories that would, I think, still interest an adult learner, but would not be too demanding, like if you're reading a novel that's, several hundred pages long.
correct. Yeah. Uh, but I've seen a lot of people when they start learning English, they just wanna learn some psychological book. For example, The Importance of Management in Life, or Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, or The Necessity of Language in Life. So what do you think of those books?
I think they're fine if you can understand them and if you don't mind the challenge of looking up many of the vocabulary words. I think that works okay. They also teach good lessons. Let's see the very effective. What's that one? The 7 or 5 points of effective life. I forget what
Correct.
one. The second one you mentioned. Um, I think that it's also good if you sing songs because some of the
Correct.
songs have good vocabulary and it's good poetry. If you look at a good song, not a lot of the modern ones, but a lot of them that have stories within the song, and then sing it and uh, let your mouth, let your tongue, let your lips get used to hearing and shaping the words of a song. And I think that can be kind of fun.
Yeah, what type of songs do you recommend?
Well, let's see. I'm just sort of drawing a blank a little bit on what songs might be helpful. So I'm not sure. I would have to say just go through some of the popular songs that are uh, maybe available now on YouTube or someplace where you can access them and hear the song as well as see the lyrics. And that's important because
Correct.
not all the songs produce the lyrics on the screen. So it's nice to have the
Yeah.
lyrics as well. And that's the lyrics are the words of the poem that are being sung. So I would say you have to kind of pick and choose which ones you like. But I'm
Yeah.
not up to date on some of the modern ones.
Yeah, that's great. So here is another questions. If you don't mind, I am going to ask you, okay?
Sure.
So it is like, what do you recommend for a beginner to do before learning a new language?
I would think that a beginner should begin with the alphabet of that language because in English, you're pronouncing letters and letter sounds. And then you're learning also how letters are blended together. The SH for sh, and the CH for ch and k, and then the
Correct.
TH for th, and the WH for wh. So some of the sounds that are basic to the language and very, very important when you go to looking at your vocabulary words. How are those blends put together? And there are many blends and diphthongs and ways that letters go together that are unique to each language. So let's say my brother's name is Philip. Well, it's spelled with a PH at the beginning, but that PH always sounds like an F. So these are lessons that have to be memorized. So when you see PH, it's F. So that's
Yeah,
something
sure.
that we have to all learn. Why is that sound there? And it doesn't always make a lot of sense.
Correct. Yeah. I have seen a lot of my friends. They just want to wait. For example, they want to learn pronunciation. They just want to wait for it, and they are saying that. So at first, we have to make sure that our whole English language as a whole, it just makes some improvement, and then they are just going for their pronunciation. What do you think of those people? What should they really do? Should they start working on their pronunciation from the beginning, or should they wait until they can get to know about the pronunciation or something?
Well, I think it all has to be done at once. I think if they get pronunciation um, incorrect, then they can set up a bad habit. So if they're always mispronouncing the W or always saying duh instead of th, so weather becomes weather should be weather. And so if they get in a bad habit right away, then that habit will stick. And it's called muscle memory. When we have our muscles, we build up our muscles for pronunciation, even because our mouth is made of muscles. And so we have to practice correctly, or we will continue to do it incorrectly. Just like a violinist must learn the sounds and be able to uh, repetitively you get the right sound as they put their fingering on the strings of the violin. They have to know the sound if they're going to get it incorrect every time and think it's correct.
Yeah. So here is the last question that I got from my friends, and it is like how to get to know about my improvement.
Hmm. Well, there are some self tests that you can do online, or you can simply begin to talk to someone who is at a more advanced level uh, than you are. And that person can help you by listening and also by maybe doing a dialogue with you on a subject. So if you pick a subject like mathematics, or you pick a subject like biology, or if you're talking about birds, and you can just talk about birds for a while with your friend and talk about feathers and flight, and you can talk about taking off and landing and all kinds of things that relate to one subject. Then you can evaluate whether you are being understood by your friend, and your friend can give you feedback on your pronunciation.
Yeah. So, and I have a very personal question, okay? And it's just my question, which I want to ask you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it is just on my mind for the last few months. Do you think for a beginner, grammar important to be built?
Well, yes, because you have to understand past, present, future, and that kind of thing relating to your verbs. The verb usage is very important in every language. I've had friends who come to this country and they say, I go store.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really tell me anything because they don't have the grammar tools to say, I went to the store. I am going to the store. I want to go to the store. I am
Right.
at the store. So we
Yeah.
have to understand some of the grammar, or we don't really have any context to communicate.
Yeah. It was so great talking to you. And I'll
Uh,
definitely see you in the next video. Thank you so much. It was great.
you're welcome, Zia. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye bye. See you.